Hello, everyone. To most of you have already, or some of you actually have talked already. So thank you for the invitation, Mark. It was very spontaneous. I think, I don't know, 6 days ago or something like that, or 7. So I wanted to talk today about incentivizing operational excellence in healthcare and biotech. And I'm here as advisor and shareholder of Alma, but I'm also CEO and founder of Prevest, which goes more into the lifestyle direction, and I come to in a second. So before we start, I would like to share with you, or just to raise the question of what is the secret behind high performance? And why I brought a swimmer is actually I was a swimmer. And actually, the challenge is actually that we normally have high goals. We set something upon, set a vision, and I think everybody of us somehow has a vision, right, with his company or where he's actually working or she's working on. But for me, it's actually over the last, since I was 5 years old, I was an athlete until 21, and it always was like something like operational excellence. So we had huge goals, attending to the Olympic Games. And therefore, you need to break it down into the smaller steps. On a daily level, you need to have some grind. And I think that's what everybody here has somehow connected or is connected with, right? You stay in a lab, you're working in another company is who really trying to achieve certain things. But you need to somehow make it repeatable. You need to actually analyze it and mitigate the risks and the mistakes to make it come to a better point. My story is actually, as I mentioned, I was 16 years an athlete, and then I got many chronic injuries. So was ongoing inflammation in my joints, in my gut, somehow like Jacob, but not so dramatic. Really sorry for that. It's horrible. But at the same time, also my parents got diagnosed with a couple of NCDs, and long story short, I needed to stop my career. I couldn't attend the World Championships. I couldn't attend the European Championships 2 years in a row, and I decided I need to stop. And accidentally, somehow I can say, I bumped into a person. So I jumped in a family office. For the ones who doesn't know what it is, actually, it was just wealth management for a very, very rich person. And I created their German blueprint protocol. But this was 9 years ago already. So there was no blueprint back then, but we just also invested a 7-digit number. It was quite interesting. I learned a lot, and I was managing that and understood somehow what is the correlation, what are the capabilities of making health accessible. As I mentioned, I became founder of Prevest because there was an incremental part that I was said, okay, how we can make just one particular pillar of the vision, actually, for instance, of superpower accessible. And currently, we are in the nutrition space, do personalized nutrition. But moving forward, we heard yesterday already that one of the biggest problems is a major bottleneck is public data, right? Access to data, standardized data, normalized data. And further on, we think that it needs certain phases to get to the infinite number of data, right? Therefore, we set up a proof of concept with Alma to create an efficient healthcare system, right? And what we did actually, we set up a small clinic. We started with 1, then we went to 3 to solve the problem of data standardization normalization in Spain. And we gathered all the patient data together in a safe kind of infrastructure and platform. And we see that afterwards this is why I'm here, to be honest, because I see a huge actually alignment that, as I heard also, I learned yesterday, that there is a big need for that. The question is just, what is the path to achieve that? Is the path actually to set up a new system in parallel? Maybe yes, maybe not. I believe just we have to talk the language actually of the market and the industries to somehow actually accelerate that. And so overall, was pointing out when you asked Mark about the healthcare system 3.0, and I had this more also high scope point of view. I think the biggest problem is we need to break the silos, right? There are big companies like pharma holding all this information and data. And now we, like Mr. Snyder, actually setting up new companies, right? So how we can bridge that. But at the same time, so money is drive this, so meaning we need to protect IP. So therefore, we said we need a two-sided marketplace. On one side, where the patient data comes in, and at the same time, who needs to be incentivized, also what Jacob was pointing out. And therefore, in the last 8 years, with my partner, Hugo, we created a patented, actually, infrastructure which is decentralized and is allowing actually to set up this patient data in a specific structure where every counterpart or every partner actually in the system has access to. It's highly encrypted, so it goes deep and deep. I'm happy to answer questions later on. And it allows the problem actually of the interoperability. So we have one particular, actually, everybody has this wallet you can think of. And what is the smallest determinator of that in terms of operational excellence? It's about workflows. So we believe, or we have thinking about it, so if you think about a doctor, and a patient comes with a certain symptom, he runs currently a workflow. And even if it fails today, what Jacob told us, we currently don't understand at what certain point it breaks. So what we saw, let's set up an UI, which is simple as Zapier. I don't know who's familiar with that. Simple Zapier workflow to actually document the workflow in first and break it down into smaller counterparts. Based on that, actually, along the dots in this task, we actually created a kind of marketplace also for AI app stores, so like tools along the way to solve each of these particular problems along the workflow. And after this, once we now understand the whole workflow, we can actually make it possible to share that across the network so that other doctors can, or first we could measure the workflow, I think from a medical side of point, which is very important, and then it could be shared. But in that way shared, that we can financially incentivize the person who started originally to build this workflow. So by that, we change actually the whole metaphor from actually treating and making another lab test and doing another actually whatever treatment plan, instead of actually focusing on operational excellence and looking in front that we can build the best workflows in the world. Further on, we also learned yesterday that what we don't model, we don't understand. So that's why we went back. And again, this is not science fiction. This is not a super, napkin where we draw something on it. So we are in Spain currently. We have several use cases. One was actually doing a cancer imaging workflow. We reduced with our platform the efficiency of that, tackling from 50 minutes to 30 seconds. And for the ones who are somehow in the healthcare system knows about a very rare disease called ATTR, we had a first AI intervention there, make it actually reasonable for the patient to get analyzed about this rare disease. I think the biggest news so far is that we expanded that slightly into 9 hospitals and clinics, which are all public. But we're also now on the making to sign Spain as a country. So our solution is going to be the foundational actually solution and infrastructure for the Spanish healthcare system. And not just that, I think now that's the most goosebumping actually I've encountered in my life, that now the countries talking to each other. So now we talk to the French Ministry of Health, Denmark, and Scotland already. And we see a huge potential to go into the US and believe that most probably, as we all know, there's a huge potential. And I don't want to drop that last point, not much of buzzwords, but I think that could be a reasonable way that in terms of AGI could be achieved in healthcare and biotech. And why? Because we need first, nobody is willing to acknowledge or also accept the collateral damage gonna be happen if just an AI is figuring out a path or a workflow what could be the best workflow and treatment plan for a patient. So I think we currently need doctors, we need experts that draw these workflows and then optimize actually along the workflows with AI tools that at the end, the human, the doctor in that sense, get incentivized. That would also mean that, long story short, that we need to document all the workflows and automate ultimately the function that AI is and have coexistence, let's say it like this, between the doctors and the AI to gather a lot of data and make it accessible in the marketplace for biotech and co. Thank you.
So because we're behind schedule, maybe one question. Questions. Roland, do you have any input on this?
Sure.
Is this on? Yeah.
So we know we have limited capital in longevity biotech. All right, can you hear me? Yes. We have limited capital. It is urgent because we're all dying, basically. So my question to you, Mark, is, or anybody else in this room, do you see a possibility to share your workflows that you have built and designed that are maybe superior to other companies with the industry, if you make money on it? If no, why?
Alex. Retro has great productivity. Would you share your workflow in a marketplace of workflow ideas?
Yeah. Sorry, self-reject.
You should talk to this guy at lunch.
Yeah, that's definitely what we are interested in because at the end, right, it's all about how to get funding so somehow reach a certain point, right? Therefore, you need to protect the IP because most of the shareholders will not give much of money, right? So it's a checking app problem. But let's say, I think we're losing a lot of speed in terms of innovation. That's what I was trying to say. Let's assume you get 100 million over the next 10 years and your outcome is 0. That at least you got something that you can share, either the ones workflows which failed, as well as the ones who maybe succeed, that we can just move on, that in our lifetime, longevity becomes realistically.